Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. And today it is the final analysis of The Walking Dead Michonne, episode 3, What We Deserve. So those that have been following this series will know how it works. We're going to run through the choices first, talk about what we did or what Liam did in his blind playthrough, if he could remember. And then we'll just go back through the episode and talk about the main talking points. And then we'll probably wrap up with our thoughts of the game. So, the first choice, lad. Did you let Sam bury her father? Do you remember what you did?
No. So I will say, mate, like the game's like a decade old, right? So like a lot of these choices I do not remember, and I think that's maybe telling of like our overall sentiment of the game anyway. But if I was to play it now, I would say yes. Like at the end of the day, this family have been through it. Like this girl has lost her brother and she's just lost her dad. I feel like for some reason this fortress of a place, danger only seems to happen if the front doors are open. So like, I think at the time I was a bit like probably like, yeah, you know what? Let's just give her this moment. She clearly needs it. She's like tunnel visioned into grief. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna dispute it. So yeah, I would have let her. How about you?
Yeah, I would have helped her as well, because I think that of all the characters in this game, Sam is one of the very few that, you know, I'm not going to say she's perfect, but she has, like, whether it's the voice actor or like just the writing in general, she's one of the stronger characters, and it does feel like that she becomes sort of your ally in the latter half of this game, whereas Pete was perhaps the ally in the first half. And you generally, you know, you can feel sorry for her. You know, she's lost her dad, she's lost her brother, and we hear the backstory about how she's lost her mum as well. So yeah, of course, I helped her at the time, and I think I did in my blind playthrough as well. But I think if you stop Sam from like dragging John's body, alternatively, what happens is that Michonne steps in and says, "Go on, you go in. I'll handle this," and you don't bury the body, you just leave it with some like tarpaulin or just something over the body, and then it all plays out very much the same, but obviously you've not buried John, so like the kids then come out with Sam to do like their little prayer thing, and a little bit of wind like blows the tarpaulin, so you then like slightly see John's head where it's been shot in. And yeah, then Michonne like has a little bit of a nightmare sequence of like from like seeing her dead, or, you know, seeing her daughter in place of John instead. So yeah, we probably did the right thing there, mate, because otherwise the kids would have been exposed to their dead dad there.
I was gonna say, that's actually pretty brutal. I mean, you know what? Like a lot of these choices, I look at that and I'm like, it's probably a nothing choice. And yeah, I know it won't really alter like the paths and the branching, but it's still cool that you get a bonus scene if you don't let her bury. So yeah, like, you know what? Fair play.
So the next one, did you tell Alex what happened to his father? So there is a bit in this episode before it all kicks off where you get to like wander around the house, and actually before we do get into sort of like the nitty gritty of this particular choice, I would say I'm pleasantly surprised. There is a good chunk in this episode, I think it's like when you're giving like the ammo round to everyone, where you actually get to properly walk about the house. There's like a good few rooms downstairs, there's a good few rooms upstairs as well, and I feel like one of the criticisms we've had of this game so far is it feels so restricted in terms of like ability to move about. You feel so packed in like in these environments. So at least in this part of like this down sort of section in the episode, that was welcome. But mate, you're probably not going to remember, but how would you have handled it? Would you have told Alex?
Yeah, but with this choice, it reminded me heavily of, you know, when we did our Walking Dead Season 2 analysis, and we were like, why is this 11-year-old girl being like forced to do everything, repair families, fix windmills, like, and it just screamed the same. I'm like, we've just been brought into this family and suddenly it's on us. The most stoic, cold-blooded person there has to suddenly mend this family and be the one to break the news to the kids. So if anyone out there picked silence, I actually wouldn't blame you, because it's not on you to tell that. You could argue the last person that should be telling the kids that. But I think I probably would have said something along the lines of, look, if you're put in the spot in that manner, I'd probably be like, look, a bad man hurt him. So you're not actively lying, but like they are kids. So like, yeah, you know, you're not being absolutely brutal by saying something like, oh yeah, your father's just dead, mate.
Yeah, it's like, because this particular scene as well, maybe I'm getting muddled up with the children here because I thought it was James was the kid, but there is a bit where you like get to speak to one of the kids and you can show him like how to put a magazine in a gun, and you can actually give him a weapon as well and tell him to look after it. Very reminiscent of like Lee and Clementine, but maybe I'm muddying the waters there because obviously this person says Alex here. But yeah, as far as the choice that we had on the stream, mate, we was in the minority there with 35% having told Alex that a bad man hurt his father. I think I can somewhat understand that. Like, there is a part of me that sort of sees what you're saying. They're like, oh, it's not necessarily on us, but at the same time, like, you perhaps want to be like straight with these kids and not, you know, because it's sort of the same debate that we've had with Sarah, that we've had with Clem, where these kids are going to have to learn what this world is very, very fast. So, and I think Michonne being the character she is, I think she's far more likely to be straight talking than evasive with the children there. But yeah, we then move on to the third choice, mate, which was, did you hand Randall over to Norma in the trade-off sequence?
Now, I can't remember what I picked. I think your answer could probably fluctuate massively depending on what side Pete's probably stood right, because as we know, we learned fresh, didn't we, that like if Pete does give himself up in the last episode, he won't be at the mansion at all, and then he rocks up. This is the first time you see him in forever. So like, if you're there with the family and you trade Randall over, and then you've got like, you know, your whole crew there, you're more likely gonna make the switch. And you know what? I probably would have, because I feel like I'm pretty sure I kept Randall alive, and I feel like, oh, now we're doing a trade. I've done the right thing because I actually have him alive here. So yeah, I should probably go through with this trade. So I think I probably leaned more on the side of yes, because I feel as well with Norma, she's not aggressive the way Randall is. I think she's more of like the politician. And because it is her brother, I generally do think like she might come back and attack you guys. But in that moment then and there, I feel like she just wants Randall back, and I think, you know, you should probably be fairly compliant. So I actually, like, if that was me in real life, I'd probably go with, yeah, hand Randall back.
Yeah, it sort of echoes back to what Fleecy said during the stream. Like, you can see with Norma, like, she is, considering she is probably the head honcho, like the villain, she is actually quite reasonable. Like, considering that she has more of your crew and you have her brother, she's willing to do the trade. But in this instance here, we didn't hand Randall over. But I will tell you, so what happens if you do hand him over, and he's obviously alive, then I believe the trade goes through fine, but then, you know, things kick off anyway, you know, with like the zombies, and, you know, but you do get Oak and Sadiq to come in with you. If he wasn't alive, at this point Randall would be a walker, and he would simply go up to Norma, she would take the bag off, and then she'd see that he's turned. She would then shoot him as like a sort of like a mercy kill, and then it all kicks off anyway. If you don't do the trade, then that's when Oak will die. So she will then shoot Oak. Obviously we know that Berto has already been shot at this point, so you can then lose Oak, but then once everything kicks off, Sadiq will then run in the gates anyway. But obviously in our instance, mate, I suppose we had the best of both worlds, because Randall was alive. We didn't do the trade, but we did signal to Paige to shoot at Norma, and that completely threw everything. Oak and Sadiq were then able to get in. We then kicked Randall out, and then Sam shot him in the head. So they were like, you know, a good couple of men down, and we'd not lost anyone really, apart from Berto. So that's the branching there. But you did bring up something that I've not actually looked into. So obviously, like, Pete can stay behind, I think, on Monroe. I've not seen what it looks like if Pete is with them when you like reunite. So I'll have to dig into that. So we'll have to
Yeah,
see.
I mean, I've not seen it, but I have read, so I can kind of fill you in on that one. I've written down here: if Pete's alive, she instantly gives Pete to you as a sign that she's genuine. So it's a bit of a nothing thing in the sense that it just sort of like sweetens the deal. So it might, make you trust Norma all the more because she instantly gives Pete like, look, we've got like 4 of your guys, you've got 1 of mine. Here, have 1 on me, and they give you Pete.
Right. Oh, fair enough. And to be honest, I'm glad that they did honour that choice because there was a part of me in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, does Pete ever, stay at Monroe? Does he always come with you on the boat? But no, like fair play. I mean, it doesn't amount to much, but at least they saw it through.
For sure. Before we move on to like the big end choice, I just want to say like because with this trade, there's a lot of branching that goes into it. Whether Pete's there, whether like you initially agree to the trade because that affects Oak's life. Berto has to die, but like what happens to Sadiq and stuff. Whether you signal to shoot, whether you don't honour the trade and you shoot Randall in the back of the head. But then there's the whole stuff as well, like the ending of the first episode of what you do to, I think his name was Jonas. Yeah, so like, and that will have an effect whether like the other guy and Gabby, just go against Norma and actively shoot one of your crew. So it's really cool to see that like that has a bearing as well. And I know you might sort of like think that like the game isn't the strongest on the exploration and the branching, but it's almost like all these little choices you do almost don't have an apparent effect until this ending. Like this might be the strongest point in the game where all your choices culminate to this point, and it's almost like a shame that the other episodes and moments are detrimented by the fact that that is the branching style. But I have to hand it to it, the trade-off scene, a lot goes down. Yeah, sure, it could be better, but it is really cool just to see various choices and decisions throughout all the episodes come to a head at this one scene.
It's a good point because like when you think about season 1, how much we laud season 1, it's it's certainly my entry into choice-based games. It's probably the one that I think of when I think of Telltale's Walking Dead. But you could say really that that's more linear because characters always die off either way. Sure, there might be some mini variation in between, but as far as the ending, it's very binary. Does Lee die as a zombie or does he get shot in the head? Whereas this, there is a bit more to it. And I guess if there was one wish is that A, that the game was longer, but B, that you had some of this branching in other parts of the other episodes as well, just to make it stand out a little bit more. But nonetheless, like it's worthy of praise because let's face it, at this point throughout this series, we've not been massively on the praise side of things. But
no.
yeah, like they've done all right there. So the next choice, did we put Norma out of her misery? So obviously everything's kicked off. She's been attacked by zombies. We can either go in, machete her in the arm and then shoot her, or we can just let the walkers take her. So mate, what would you have done, or what did you do if you remember?
You know what? I sit on the side of save your bullet. I'm a horror junkie. I like the death scene. It is gruesome. So I'm glad that on your stream the fans voted to let her be, because it is a really horrible death. Like, I think the best deaths in the game all happen at this mansion outside, funnily enough. One being the flare, one being John's like surprise kill, and the other one being this one because of how lethal and brutal it is. But I would also say that Norma potentially doesn't deserve this death as well, because I think again we reiterate the point, and this is one thing I quite like about Norma. She's not just this absolute evil dictator. She's generally someone who has been wronged and she just wants to make things even. And at the end of the day, she's got like an out of control brother who's really violent, and a bunch of her recruits, grunts that have gone and killed someone and messed up the trade potentially. So yeah, fuck it, give her the cool death. But yeah, does she deserve it? Probably not.
Probably worthy of another video, mate, to go into it in a little bit more detail, because you get the impression with Norma, she's a character where she recognises the hot-headedness of her brother in Randall, but ultimately he's her brother. She's going to do everything she can to save him. So you know, whether that means violence, but she tries to take the diplomatic route. So, you know, maybe there is something in that. Maybe she's not like the villain that, you know, on the eyes people may well think that she is.
Just the teacher that lost control of the classroom.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like, I mean, we did the same. Like, we saw her death very reminiscent of like Shaun of the Dead, like that particular death, you know, where like he gets pulled out and like the guts all pour out, and yeah, very very grotesque, very very visceral. But then we move on to the final choice, mate. So, did you choose to leave your daughters or stay with them?
Leave. Now, this is kind of like the 50-50 choice at the end, and I'm not really a fan of it. I think it's really apparent what the right choice is, and usually when you have these ending choices, we talk sort of like Life is Strange 1, right, where save Arcadia Bay or save Chloe, and it's near enough like a 50-50 split kind of thing. You look at this choice and 92% of players decide to leave. And I feel like they could have done stronger things to make you kind of pull you into the house again and be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go back for my daughters. I think the mental health element is captured really well. But I think for Michonne, the fact that the daughters are just heavily done through silhouettes, we don't have any real like positive flashbacks where we really get to know these daughters or like the family life. That because we don't really know Elodie and Colette, I feel like we're just like, oh, well, these flashbacks have been haunting me for so long, of course I'm not going to follow them, because each time I do in my other flashbacks, it's not got me anywhere. So I think it was the natural kind of ending to be like, yeah, I'm going to let go, I'm going to move forward and help these people. So I did leave the daughters. I think it was a no-brainer decision, and I just wish that maybe the writing was done a little bit better to make that more of a difficult choice.
Yeah, I 100% agree, mate. And on top of that as well, I mean, if you do choose to stay with your daughters, it ultimately gets Sam killed as well, doesn't it? In the sort of the trying to escape. So, but yeah, just to come sort of like back round to that point, because I've said earlier in this analysis that I wasn't massively convinced on Michonne's character, or at least the backstory. But when you think this game, like these little girls, they've been silhouettes, and they've, you know, been in like nightmare sequences or whatever. But in that final bit where the place is burning down and everything goes calm, and she's in the doorway with the kids and they're saying, "Don't go, mum," and you actually see their faces, and obviously Michonne's partner is in the background as well, saying, you know, if she wants to go, she wants to go. It is actually more touching, and it's almost sort of similar to what we were saying about like the trade-off bit, mate. Is that you sort of, I wish there was more of this earlier on in the game, because it's almost like the final 15 minutes is where this game starts to really excel a little bit, and you actually start to engage with it, maybe on a slightly more emotional level. So I completely agree with you there, but you know, as you put, mate, I did choose to leave as well. So not that again it massively matters too much either, because at the very end of the game you do see both her daughters off in the distance again, so it's almost that telling thing of she hasn't quite gotten over it yet. But yeah, nonetheless, maybe not necessarily a good choice, but a good way to end that little arc for Michonne, I think. So yeah, right, so they're the choices out the way, mate. So is there any particular points of discussion in this episode that you wanted to go back to?
Yeah, for sure. So I want to hark back to a little point you mentioned earlier. I want to talk about locations again, which is sort of a theme we've kind of like really done. Like now, I feel what makes a good Telltale Walking Dead game, and I feel you need the combo of the action, the puzzles, the dialogue, the choices and the branching, but also kind of like the location exploration. Now, if you pick any sort of season 1, you know, Telltale Walking Dead like episode, you know there's a fair amount of scenes where you can walk around a fairly roomy place, whether it's a classroom, a farm, you know, like the trains or whatever. We've said that, yeah, like this game's felt very claustrophobic. If there is any exploration scene, you're either in a prison cell, you're either on a ship deck where you can only walk down sort of like the starboard or the port or whatever. But you said that it was actually kind of refreshing that for once we're finally able to explore this house, because I think in episode 2 it presents us this lovely house and you're almost dying to get stuck in and explore all the rooms, but it never lets you have that, but it finally does at this stage. Now I do think that like pretty much 95% of the episode takes place at this house, right? So like while with the other episodes we got to kind of like, you know, start on the ship, then we got to go to Monroe, then episode sort of 2 it's like you're leaving that and then, you know, you walk to the mansion but you walk through the forest. This one it's fully in the mansion. So like I am really glad they gave us the exploration scene, because like the game was crying out. Like episode 2 was almost insulting with the lack of exploration. The only time you really explore is literally when you're walking around your daughter's bedroom in the flashback sequence. Otherwise it's all just dialogue and action. So it was really cool to see. And you know what, I actually really enjoyed the bit where you went up to the gramophone and you played a song and you almost had like a shanty going out, and then they almost went for that cinematic thing of like the sweeping cameras looking at like kind of like all the people preparing for battle while Norma's army are coming, you know, to like the gates almost, and it almost felt reminiscent of like something out of Lord of the Rings, like before they're preparing for a battle. So yeah, I just wanted your take on kind of like the gramophone scene, but yeah, also if you maybe felt that the episode was slightly harmed as well, that you were just always at the mansion the entire time.
I think so. Yeah, in that sort of latest point, yeah, I think it is. Yeah, almost like the exact opposite to episode 2, where you had like a great opening 20 minutes, and then the rest of it, you know, sure you had like the interrogation with Randall and stuff like that, but it's mostly at the mansion, you walking about and talking. This was the opposite. It was almost like the final 20 minutes were great, but you had all again like the talking and the wandering around. As far as the gramophone scene bit, for me, it actually felt quite Life is Strangey, and you know how you get those in like Life is Strange games where you can pause and the camera then takes in the environment, you know, where like Max is sitting down, or you know whoever you're playing as is sitting down. It felt like one of those moments, but for some reason it just didn't translate very well to me, because it happened once in the entire game. If it had almost been repeated multiple times, I'm almost saying like, sure, like they're really trying to really immerse you into this world and to take a breather and to think about the characters, the situations that they're in. But for me, this just sort of felt a little bit out of place. I like what they were trying to do. But yeah, for me, it just didn't quite land, if I'm being completely honest.
You know what, and I will concede that point. It is certainly very out of place. I think it was like a welcome change, and I think you're walking around this big house, and it was nice just to get something different. But I do agree, it didn't feel very, very Telltale Walking Dead-y. So yeah, no, you're not wrong, mate. You know, while you're walking around as well, we have to mention Randall, right? Because like obviously you get a big choice at the end of the last episode where you can either kill him on the spot or you could kind of leave him in the game. And then, but if you know what happens in a Telltale game, if they can die, but then you leave them in, they'll probably become a background character. We mentioned Nick in season 2, how he can die in episode 2. If he doesn't in episode 3, he'll literally be in the background. In episode 4, he'll have an off-screen death. I just wanted to ask, were you disappointed with Randall's role in this episode, mate, if you do choose to keep him alive?
Yeah, I was. Again, he's one of the, like I said with Sam earlier, one of the stronger characters. One of he just has a loud presence, doesn't he? He's the one that antagonises Michonne. He stirs the pot. Obviously, if he is dead, then you don't get that, but that's a choice that you made, so you have to own that. If he's alive, you'd have hoped that there would have been a little bit more with Randall, to be that antagonist in the build up to like the trade-off, and maybe they could have done something where, you know, you almost want to not give him over for some particular reason, you don't know, just to make that a little bit more interesting with like the crew being on the opposite side to you. So I am a little bit disappointed in that, but I mean, it's like what you were saying, it's a Telltale game. It's there's limitations in the branching, and that's just something, unfortunately, that we've just got to accept.
Yeah, I do agree, because it is just kind of like, in case people do kill him, we're going to give him such a minor role to the point they literally stick a bag over his head for the episode.
Yeah.
And I know that like there is variations on the trade, because we talked about fair play to the trade scene. It is kind of epic. I do like the culmination of all the little choices that come to this climax, but it is a little underwhelming in the sense that if you do bring him to the trade, he's kind of like a bargaining chip, but then he just gets shot in the back of the head anyway. It would have been cool if there was a variation where you could completely fail the trade off and then Randall's alive and then you have to like deal with him in combat afterwards. That could have been another cool way of doing it. But you know what, like, beggars can't be choosers. But you know what, we talk about Randall, and we mentioned how Pete is a bit of a character, like a plot device, right, rather than a character himself. And I do think it's very similar, because I had no idea that he can completely be out the game if he hands himself in at the start of episode 2. And I've always thought this guy's a bit of a nothing character, and it makes so much sense now, because if you give him away, he is, again, he's just a background character throughout the mansion scenes, and it makes so much sense now. So yeah, like, that's just like one of those 2 and 2 together things that I've kind of noticed, and that's why.
You know what, while we obviously are talking about Pete there, I do want to use that as a nice little segue to more or less right to the beginning of the episode, mate, where we get like a 2 weeks earlier flashback and we're on the boat with Michonne and the crew. And you have this little talk with Oak, don't you? And he gives you a bit of his backstory about how his brother died, and then along the way he met Pete, and Pete took him in, and he's such a good guy, and he invites you to then go play some cards and have a drink afterwards and stuff. And I just wanted to put it to you, like, with the crew in general, do you wish that should I put it this way? Are you glad that this scene was in there? Did it make a difference to you when it comes to the trade-off? Like, did you feel emotionally a little bit more, linked with them or whatever? Or was you left more frustrated that maybe they should have put a little bit more work in with the crew in an earlier episode, because now it feels like that it's almost like they've just remembered, we need to do a little bit of work with the crew here to make it seem really important later this episode for the choice.
I'm with you. So with the trade, I feel like if we didn't get that flashback scene and then they bring the crew to you, you're like, oh yeah, these guys, like, you probably like look at Berto and Sadiq like, were you a part of my crew? I don't really remember you guys. So like, I think we needed it, and it does make Oak a better character. But I also agree with your other point. We needed more of this. We needed like more emotion with the crew. We needed to kind of learn their backstories. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Berto and Sadiq, mate, genuinely. It definitely humanized Oak a bit more, the story with his brother, about how like he was the only one who came out that mission alive, and it makes you feel for him. And I imagine if you did kill Oak in the trade, it probably makes the scene quite brutal, actually. But maybe they could have given us another flashback in chapter 2, because chapter 2 was crying out for something, and maybe we just needed another flashback of like, something to do with the crew. Maybe you get to know Sadiq a bit more, and you get to know Sadiq's backstory. So yeah, I definitely think that could have broke up some of the tedious scenes in episode 2, because it did feel like that. It's perfectly placed right before the trade, almost just to give you that reason to care, to not just be chaotic.
Yeah, it's like another thing as well, like, they really did, I feel like with this episode, and it's you know what, it's going to be so interesting when we do like an episode ranking for this, because no episode stands out massively as like what would be first, what would be second, and what would be third. But you could tell with one thing this episode, they did try to like up the emotional ante as well. Like, there's that bit where at the very start where there's sort of considering, should we go on the run or should we stay here and defend the house? And you're looking at Sam and thinking, like, if using her shoes, you could understand that she sort of wants to defend the house because that's all that she sort of has left of her family besides her brothers. And then the other thing as well, like with the letter, like when you can go upstairs and wander about, you can find like the suicide note from John's wife to John, which again I think is another way of like trying to really, up the ante on like the emotional aspects and like the bonds between the family and stuff like this. So on top of the nightmare stuff with the Michonne's daughters as well. So you could tell that they was really trying to up the ante, and I sort of wish though that was at the forefront of my mind with this episode, but I can't help but feel that I'm going to walk away thinking I wish that a lot of that sort of walking around giving ammo to people was a bit less. I wish there was something a bit more meaty and something more interesting to work with there.
No, I agree. Even if it was like maybe fortifying your walls a little bit, or teaching one of the kids shooting, so it was like a hark back to Lee and Clementine. They definitely could have done something different. But yeah, like really good trade scene. But yeah, like a lot of the other stuff falls quite flat, and you're in the mansion for a bit too long. Something I wanted to mention is a character we've not really talked about in this game. And maybe there's a reason for, but I wanted to talk about Paige a little bit before we kind of wrap up this whole analysis series, because we won't see her again for the rest of the series. She is literally just in this game. But Paige is an interesting character because for some reason, when I first played it and left the game, Paige stuck in my mind. I was like, yeah, I remember that blonde girl in the mansion. So like, when I saw your stream, I was expecting her to be like this really cool character, because I'm like, there's got to be a reason she stuck it in my mind. But if anything, I feel like my opinion on her has got worse. It's like, I get she's in the house and she's probably like kind of that voice of reason that tries to kind of like say, yeah, we're in a war, we need to kind of like defend, and you know, she tries to kind of be the voice of reason on Michonne's shoulder. But I don't know, I just fell out of her a little bit this episode, because she's talking about, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, and then she's just moaning at Sam burying her dad, and she says something like, I've never seen Sam like this before. And it's like, no shit, she's lost her brother and her dad. Like, that's gonna happen. Like, of course you've not seen this before. She's lost two close people all at once. I just wanted your opinion on the Paige character, and whether you shared my sentiment as well, that she was just in the way a little bit, and I kind of just disagreed with a lot of the stuff she was saying to me.
I don't really rate the character. Her only real shining moment was obviously, you know, when you signalled to her to shoot Norma. But you think, like, if you took Paige out of this game, how much would it change, really? Like, one of the choices was, you know, in episode 2, was it like, you know, something about, you know, suicide or something? Like, it wasn't that big of a choice. You don't really see much of a rapport with Michonne and Paige anyway. It's more Michonne and Pete, or Michonne and Sam. To me, she feels very background and inconsequential. So yeah, I suppose in short, mate, I don't really rate the character. Nothing has really changed my mind on that one since revisiting it.
Yeah, and I think because she has an end choice displayed at the end of episode 2, like, did you open up that you nearly ended it to her? I guess I got this false impression that she was going to play a big role, but it never really leads to anything. And I feel, yeah, could you remove her from the game? Maybe, like I say, maybe you teach the kid to round up the magazines, and maybe the kid's the one at the window, and you could actually just take Paige out the game and have one of the kids at the window to shoot, and then you would have had less sort of like, I don't know, random fat off the end of this product, and then you could have had something more concise, and you could have explored the characters deeper rather than wider. So yeah, like it'd be really interesting to see what people say in the comments, but I'm kind of like looking at Paige a little bit, like wondering what was her purpose other than just a bit of random dialogue and having the final shot, which probably could have been done by anyone else.
There's one final thing, because when we talked about kills in the previous episode, I did just want to bring up another cool kill. We've talked about the Michonne one as well, but there is that when you're escaping the house, I think, this pretty cool kill where, like, with just a single machete, you can pierce two walkers against the wall, which I don't really remember from some of the other Walking Dead games, but again, maybe that was something I'll pick up in the future. But one thing I will give Michonne props for, some really cool walker kills. Other than that, mate, I've not got anything else to add, so if you're ready, we'll just do like a little conclusion, a little overall summary of what we think of Michonne.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm happy to start. Like, so for me, I remember when you played this game before me, and when you recommended it to me, I remember you were like, oh, it's not like the other games. So like, the bar was real low for me, and then I thought the game was okay, so I came out the other end pleasantly surprised. Having sunk the game in and played a variety of Telltale games since, I can say that, yeah, this probably is the weakest Walking Dead installment. It's not a bad game, it's very mid. Like, everything about the game is not good, but not bad. Everything's just okay. It's a very okay game. Like, if you're thinking about buying the game, yeah, sure, but I would wait for it to go out on a sale. Like, I probably wouldn't pay more than £10 on it. It really suffers from the lack of exploration. It's very dialogue heavy. A lot of the choices don't amount to all that much, especially when you look at some of the end choices. It's like, did you open up to this person about this event, or did you go through the window or up the ladder? Which, I'm not a fan of displaying that as an end choice. So that tells you all you need to know. And I did say before that I do think Telltale obviously went through a big downfall, and I think you can kind of like pinpoint the start of the downfall around this time. Walking Dead Season 1, Season 2 sort of finished, Wolf Among Us is gone, and I think this is the turning point where the games did start to lose quality, and I think it was from this game where I was like, yeah, not brilliant. I mean, we spoke a lot about it as well. I feel like it's way too centered around Michonne, to the point a lot of the side characters fall down the wayside a little bit. There's just not enough depth. I didn't really care for them that much. The ones that I did care for, I probably would have used them better or differently. Yeah, I've already spoke about the lack of exploration and the fact that you're too static in locations. You're at the mansion for way too long. So there's a lot I would change about the game. Like I say, I think a big reason for its maybe downfall is the fact that we're in the midst of playing Clementine, this character we care deeply for. She's like our virtual daughter to like us, right? So we want to see what's happening next for Clementine. So when they chuck us something like 400 Days, that's a nice little thing. But this was almost like its own game, but it wasn't a Clementine thing, so we didn't really care for it. But it wasn't like a small DLC like 400 Days, but it wasn't a big blockbuster game like a Walking Dead game, and it was like this really murky grey in-between thing. And I think there's like a lack of understanding of what it's trying to be. So it misses the mark for sure. But again, there is stuff I really like about it. So like, I would say it's like a solid 4 or 5 out of 10 game. And I'm a harsh marker, so that's not bad. It's just, again, like I said from the top, mate, it is a very okay game, but just everything about it just screams okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, I think a lot of the issues with this game do tend to spawn with the runtime. I think because the episodes are so short, you don't have that natural thing that you get in storytelling where you have a high sequence and then you have a low sequence and then it goes high. And for me, it's almost like you get a good bit and then you're sort of caught thinking to yourself come the end of the episode, wow, I really should have tried to enjoy that more, because after that it just fell downhill. Or vice versa, you're waiting for the good bit to come in the end. The final 20 minutes were great. I think the opening was okay. I think there was a lot of dead stuff in the middle, like once you actually get to the mansion. What we've said before, mate, like maybe Monroe should have been the final base. Imagine like torching that place on fire at the end. That maybe would have been a little bit more fitting. The choices, sure, like they come together in this episode in some ways, but overall it feels very Telltale. It doesn't quite hit the mark. And the characters themselves, like it's so Michonne driven that you just don't really feel anything or that much for any of the other ones. They try their best, but then it defaults to the runtime again, and I feel like it's left wanting. There's so many missed opportunities. Even like you said before with like the kids, like have a scene where you're like teaching them how to shoot a gun or something. Just make something a bit more exciting than hitting several buttons on your controller for different bits of dialogue, So I can't say that actually I was hoping that playing this game again it would improve my outlook on it. I don't think it has. I think it's pretty much remained the same, which is that it's not bad. I mean, if you're a fan of the TV series, maybe you'll get a kick out of it, seeing and playing as Michonne. Maybe you're a Walking Dead completionist, again, go in and buy it. But of all the Walking Dead products, I think this is the weakest, and I'd even put 400 Days in that as well. So yeah, a little bit of a bummer there. But you know, look, like anything, there's good bits, there's bad bits. I just think that the bad bits on this occasion outweigh the good bits.
Yeah, we've got to be brutally honest with our opinions. We're not just going to rave about every game we play. We've spotted a lot of flaws in it, and we just have to pick that out. And like I say, there's a lot of good, you know, like you mentioned earlier, mate, like the combat is really good, and it makes sense because Michonne's really good at combat, so they've tweaked the combat, and I loved everything about that. It's just, yeah, everything else in the game, just, yeah, it falls slightly flat, and it's just, it's not what Walking Dead Season 1 was. They've just lost the magic on that front.
So yeah, there we go, guys. That concludes the end of our analysis for The Walking Dead Michonne. If you enjoyed this series, then I do suggest you stick around, even give us some video ideas in the comments below if you do want us to carry on talking about Michonne in some way, or heck, even the rest of the Walking Dead series. I know one day we will get round to A New Frontier, and then of course Season 4 as well, so do stick around if you're looking forward for that. Otherwise, that's all from me. Have you got anything to add, mate?
Not at all, just what you said. I'm sure we'll do New Frontier at some point, so if you enjoy videos like this or any other choice-based games, Quantic Dream, Supermassive Games, Don't Knock Deck 9, we're the channel for you. So yeah, like and subscribe, and thank you for watching this analysis with us.
Okay, thanks guys. See you in the next one.
Bye guys.